Hey guys, this week we have a very special guest with us, Primal Ireland, History and Culture, which is led by Ronan. He will be leading you guys through a fantastic period of the Vikings in Ireland. In fact, I don't want to ruin this for you, so I'll just hand you completely over.
Hi there, my name is Ronan and I'm delighted to be making a contribution to Irish medieval history. I run a small channel called Primal Ireland regarding Irish history and culture. I'm not as full fat as Irish medieval history, but I'm delighted to make this video about a battle that was fought in 999. This video never nearly came about because of my fee. I asked for 6, the boys offered me 4. Finally, we agreed on 5. 5 pints of Guinness the next time the lads are back. And ironically enough, Arthur Guinness is buried just outside in that churchyard. So there's serendipity for you.
Is this the grave of a slain Viking prince of the Battle of Glenmama in 999? What we do know is it was a slaughter of the Dublin Vikings. We also know not only the date, but the day it happened. And we know who fought there. What we don't know is where the battle was located.
So I'm going to visit 3 locations and I'm going to make the case for each one. And I'm going to ask you for your thoughts and opinions in the comments below to see which is the best fit and to try and put you into the minds or into the seats of the commanders on that day. So just some housekeeping. The term Viking is a relatively modern term. The old writings refer to Vikings as foreigners, Danes, Northmen or Norse. In my videos though, I cater for a general audience and I'm going to refer to the term Viking.
The Vikings originated in Scandinavia and first began raiding Ireland in 795. By the 800s, they had begun to build settlements around Ireland. The Vikings established independent kingdoms in Dublin, Waterford, Wexford, Cork and Limerick. The background to the Battle of Glenmama lies in the dramatic rise of the Irishman Brian Boru, King of Munster. Brian, a man of great political acumen, military ability and cunning, steadily emerged over the 980s and early 990s to rival High King Mael Shecnil. Such was Brian's power that the High King held a great conference with him near Clontarf in 997. What resulted was an agreement between the two to divide control of the island. Mael Shecnil would control the northern half, while the High King recognised Brian's dominance over southern Ireland. To the annoyance of the Viking Sitric Silkenbeard of Dublin, the city, with its lucrative trading networks, now lay under Brian's control. Sitric was to find a ready ally in Mael Morda, King of Leinster in North Kildare, who deeply resented the Munsterman Brian. Their collective restiveness was inevitably to lead to a dangerous revolt against Brian's rule. The spearhead of the revolt was Mael Morda. Ensuring Brian's intervention, this must have required an extraordinary response, because winter is not the season to conduct war in Ireland. The combined allied forces of Viking Dublin and the Irish of Leinster met Brian in the Battle of Glenmama on Thursday, December 30th, 999. This was a massive conflict, with major casualties on both sides. The battle appears as an entry in a number of the Irish annals, namely Annals of the Four Masters, the Annals of Ulster, the Chronicon Scotorum, and the Annals of Inishfallen. According to the Annals of Inishfallen, quote, the best part of the foreigners of Ireland fell here. There were many casualties on both sides. Estimates are in the thousands. A text written over 100 years later called Cugga Galiv Rí Galiv states that the battle was, quote, bloody, furious, red, valiant, heroic, manly, rough, cruel, heartless. And men of intelligence and learning say that since the Battle of Mag Rath, to that time, there had not taken place a greater slaughter. As for Brian's side, the Cugga notes that, quote, there fell multitudes of the Dalcosh and of the Munster men in general. But there is no record of where it was fought.
And this is the first site. It's outside the small village of Dunlavin in West Wicklow. It's about 36 miles or 58 kilometres from Dublin city centre.
Local oral tradition in the Dunlavin area regarding the Battle of Glenmama remains strong. The valley identified by Father Shearman, writing in the 1860s, is known locally as the Valley of the Black Pig. Father Shearman's papers stated the following, quote, "In the first week of May 1864, Smith and Bond dug up a grave or pit in which there were bones and also the remains of a Danish sword with other fragments. On the 29th of September 1865, I was at the spot, and it seemed there had been a pit in which the bodies of the slain were interred. The earth was black and unctuous, and when cut through, contrasted with the poor yellow clay." He continues, quote, "There is also a tradition that Brian Boru chased the Danes through Hollywood Glen in their retreat. For Mrs. Cassidy of Donard, at 75, a repository of the tradition, this she had heard from her father." Father Shearman also states, quote, "A stand was seemingly made at Lemonstown Ford, as every mound and field all around is filled with their bodies, so that people now suppose a cemetery must have formerly existed." It is interesting to note that in the book Ireland and the Celtic Church, G.T. Stokes wrote, quote, "No ancient battlefield has been more completely identified and followed in all details than this one. He placed a battle in the valley, quote, beside the ancient but rather backward town of Dunlavin." That is a little unkind to the village of Dunlavin, as according to the Royal Society of Antiquaries of Ireland, an ancient road passed near Dunlavin. Quote, "This was, perhaps, one of the oldest of the ancient roads of Ireland. It led into Dublin through the townland of Bohernabrina."
And ironically, any time I travel to Dublin, I will use that ancient route through Bohernabrina.
And no mention is given to the great dune or fort to which Dunlavin gets its name. No historian has mentioned if this was of any strategic importance to either army.
So we're at our second site location, and this is Bono, my drone, as in U-2 reconnaissance aircraft for the US Air Force. Now today I'm very close to a military base and I'm restricted in using him, so I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way.
This site is in the county of Kildare, on the Kildare-Dublin border. It is held by most historians to be the probable location of the battle, proposed by Joseph Lloyd in 1914. Another historian noted, quote, "Given the propensity for battles to take place in border regions, it seems reasonable to seek a location close to the perimeter of the Hiberno-Norse kingdom of Dublin. This location is close to the motorway that links Dublin with Cork and Limerick. As it happened, I drove outside the restricted zone and was able to launch Bono from the beautiful but deserted Oughterard Monastery, a place known to one of the protagonists of this story."
Sitric burned this monastery in 995 and would have been familiar with this country.
To the left are the flat plains of Leinster. It is said that from this hill of Oughterard you can see 13 counties. To the right are the Dublin and Wicklow hills. This area is the beginning of the rise to those hills. On the left is Lyons Hill, that has a rath or ring fort on its summit. To the right is Windmill Hill. It is believed that between these two is the site of the battle. It is impossible to know what the topography was like here 1200 years ago to create the glen in which the battle took place. So why two possible locations? Well, it seems to come down to the interpretations of a word. The word Lyvaun was used in a poem believed to have been written in 942 by chief poet Cormacan Aegeus. His poem states, quote, "We were a night at Lyvaun. There were many in pursuit behind us, the Laginians at Glenmama." It is the word Lyvaun that has been interpreted for each site, in that the hill at Lyons was known as Lyvaun, derived from an Irish name for an elm tree. Or, after Dún Lyvaun, the old name for Dunlavin, named after the dún near the village, said to have been named after the Celtic princess Lyvaun of the Fair Robe. However, thirdly, historian Owen MacNeill proposed the battle was fought 6.5 kilometres or 4 miles south of Lyons Hill at the hamlet of Brittis in County Dublin. He states, quote, "According to the evidence of a Belgian geologist, Dr. Siemens, The geological formation of the Wicklow Mountains is such that a gold-bearing vein at Arklow and Avoca should again appear in the northwestern extremity of the range, i.e. in the British neighbourhood. This conclusion is supported by very ancient historical evidence, where gold was first boiled in the Uherlifa, which comprised of the parts of Wicklow, Kildare and Dublin north of the Liffey Bend. It is likely also that this gold-bearing region was the territory of that branch of the Lagan known as Lagan on Ire. It cannot be doubted, however, that this gold-bearing area was of considerable importance and would have bloomed largely in the operations of an invading army." End quote. It is also worth noting that the ancient road that goes through Bohernabrina goes through this hamlet of Brittis. After the battle, Brian's men found Mael Morda hiding up a yew tree. He was captured and spent 3 years in captivity. Sitric was said to have fled to Dublin. So in summary, there is the oral tradition of Dunlavin, handed down through the centuries, supported by one record that says Brian took Dublin 2 days later, a march easily done from Dunlavin and the Valley of the Black Pig. Then there is the historian logic of Lyons, that is to cite an army on the approaches to Dublin, and supported by another record that states that Brian reached Dublin the next day after the battle. Finally, the theory of geology and the lust for gold at Brittis.
And now it's over to you. And I'd love to read your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. But for now, I'm going to return to the grave of that Viking.
It is said this is the grave of Harald Olafsson, leader of the Vikings at Dunlavin, brother of Sitric, buried with his collar of gold. This stone is called locally a Viking stone. Some say the hole is for a shaft of wood to make a cross. Others that it was used to put their hand through, to make a vow with another, like a marriage or an agreement. Sitric, although defeated, would flee Dublin to return with more Viking allies, and once again face Brian Boru at the famous Battle of Clontarf in 1014. Perhaps this stone was used to swear an oath of revenge.